in this particular problem, everywhere there is a y, you are plugging in what? The negative 6x plus 16. Okay? So we're going to say negative 8x minus 3 times the negative 6x plus 16 equals negative 8. First step would be to get rid of the parentheses. So let's distribute. You still have the negative 8x plus 18x minus 48 equals negative 8. Now, combine like terms. These two will combine to make 10x. And then with the negative 48, we'll add the 48 over. So 10x equals 40, which means x equals 4. Okay, so kind of remember this one, but we'll come back to it. Where do you use that x equals 4? Does it matter where you plug it into? You have 3 choices, right? You have the 2 that they give you, plus the one that you created. Which one of those 3 is the easiest? The one you created. So let's plug that 4 in here. Negative 6 times 4 plus 16, negative 20. Y equals negative 8. So ordered pair, if you're kind of dozing off, refocus. Ordered pair would be what? 46. Got it? Yes, no, maybe? Do you remember doing it? Yeah. I promise it's just because your brain's involved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Although I understand probably, I was having a hard time with 9th grade math and 10th grade math, which I did the semester after 9th grade math. That was good.
There you go. Do you feel comfortable with B and D? The lack of time, I don't know that we need to, like, what's the phrase, like beat the dead horse or something? I don't feel like we need to keep doing it. Do you feel like you need to do one more, or are you okay? One more. Why don't you try part B, which shouldn't be part B, but there it is, on your own. Just make sure you got it. So what's your negative for it? I would add the 4x over, and then I multiply the whole row by a negative. If you saw something like on part D where this is the easiest part, well, 2 things. I actually tried. I might do something else. If you saw something like this, and you wanted to get y by itself, you could add the 4x over, so you get negative y equals 11 plus 4x. And then what would we have to do to get rid of the negative? Right, so do y equals negative 11 minus 4x. Okay. Or I could add the y and then what? So that the y becomes positive, but then you have to get rid of the 11, so you subtract 11. Either way, you've got the same thing for the y. All right, let's go back to this one. I want to get y by itself, so you have to get rid of that minus x. What do you do? Add x. So this is what y equals. Go to the other equation, because if you were to plug it back into this equation, it wouldn't work. Go to the other equation. Everywhere there's a y, you put x plus 1. So negative 4x plus 8 times x plus 1. We are substituting. It's a little bit of a harder substitution than when I was just making those up at the very beginning, but it's still substituting. Then you distribute. Plus 8x plus 8 equals a negative 24. So then combine those two, you get 4x plus 8. But let's get rid of that plus 8, so you subtract 8. What's in negative 24 subtract 8? Negative 32. Divide by 4, x equals negative 8. That's the first part. Take that negative 8, replace it right here. What do we get? Y equals negative 7. So negative 8, negative 7 is our point. Yes? Yes. Okay. Now, let's temporarily skip the story problems. I'm not fully sure what you just said, but I think I did. Okay, if one of the equations is a quadratic equation, we will end up with a quadratic and need to remember 3 ways to solve a quadratic equation. You could solve a quadratic equation by, and remember, factoring, which is the game. You could solve it by completing a square, which we won't do. Or there was the last way.
Quadratic equation.
Quadratic formula, good. So do you remember what the quadratic formula says? Negative b plus or minus?
Negative.
Square minus 4 over.
If you had to pick which one of those 3 is the fastest, the one that is the fastest is the quadratic, or the factoring. I don't know what it is. Factoring, I'm going to try factoring first every single time. If that doesn't work, I jump to the quadratic formula because this one will always work. But it's longer, so I'm going to try the shortcut if I can before I go to the long one. Now, really quick, I am assuming your factoring could be a little bit rusty. Would that be accurate? Maybe? So if you had, x squared minus x plus 30 equals 0, how would you solve that? The first step would be what? Yeah, let's play the game, see if it works. What 2 numbers? Pause really quick. Who was not in my class when we learned factoring? I don't think Gage was. Anybody else? Mason, I don't think was. Ariane wasn't. Okay, so this is kind of, the process should be very similar depending on, it doesn't matter really what class you were in. The formatting, like this part right here, could be a little different. The point is, I'm looking for 2 numbers that multiply to those outside 2 together. So the 1 and the 30 would make a 30. But it has to add to a negative. Oh, that should be a minus. it would need to add to a -1. So what two numbers would multiply to a -30 and add to a -1? -6 and 5. So those are, I call them the game pieces. Those are my two game pieces. What do I do with those two numbers? Can you take the shortcut, and how do you know? Yes, why? Yeah. If the leading coefficient is 1, you can jump straight to the bottom, and just put them in. X minus 6, x plus 5. No switching of signs, nope. Now I'm solving this equation, so the first step is to factor it, but it equals 0. Well, if this is going to equal 0, either the first one equals 0, or the second one equals 0, right? Okay? Notice again, no switching of signs. When do the signs switch? At this point, right? It naturally switches signs because if I'm going to solve this equation for 0, what do I do? Add 6, so x would equal 6, and it naturally changes signs. And on this one, x would equal naturally changing signs. Is that okay? Let's do one more. What if it said x squared plus 17x plus 70 equals 0? So I don't know, is there space on your paper somewhere? Maybe at the very, very top side somewhere. Try to solve this. Find a little empty spot on your paper somewhere and try solving that. Factor it first, yep. What two numbers multiply to 70 and add to 17? 27. Can we jump to the shortcut? Yep. Yes, good. Once you set them equal to 0, what do you do next? At this point, we're going to solve for x. This line right here, I don't care if you write down or not. X would either have to be -10 or -7. Okay, one last thing really quick. Pretend like you had x squared plus 2x minus 1 equals 2x. What would you do first? You would subtract the 2x. Why? You have to have it equal to 0. Good. So when I subtract that 2x, I would get x squared minus 1 equals 0. And then how do I set up the game board for this one? It has to multiply to what? Multiply to -1 and add to 0. And it's adding to 0 because the middle term is gone, right? So what two numbers would multiply to a -1 and add to 0? And then you would finish, right? Okay, cool. Let's go back to our notes. So I'm going to jump to factoring first if I possibly can. If not, I do the quadratic equation, completing the square. I don't feel like it would be worth our time to review. Oh, there we go. So the first step, the process is exactly the same as the last time we did this. Or the substitution is the same. So they're both y equals. It doesn't really matter which one you substitute. If this is the y I'm going to use, I'm going to take this y right here, go to the other equation, and replace it right there. Is that okay? So just making a substitution, this goes right here. So you would have a -2x plus 12 equals x squared minus 11x plus 28. Now if I want to solve the quadratic equation, I either have to factor, complete the square, we'll get rid of that, or the quadratic formula. It has to be set equal to 0 no matter what though, so let's take both of these and move them over. Now, I don't know how much room this is, it's going to be a lot of space, so write small. So let's add the 3x over. By plus 3x plus 3 guess what would it be right here? 8x. And if I subtract 12, what would it be? 16. Is that right? Now that it's equal to 0, let's try playing a game. Can you find two numbers that multiply to 16 and add to negative 8? Multiply to 16, add to negative 8. Negative 4 and negative 4? Okay. Can you jump straight to the shortcut? Yeah? Yeah. Okay, so let's x minus 4, x minus 4, which means x equals, from here, what? So that equals to 0, it would be 4. And then from here, it's still 4, I don't have to list anything. So, okay, but do you see how I could possibly get two different answers? Questions so far? You can just pause and let me just take it in for a second. Sometimes when we do the first one, it's crazy hard, but by the time we do the third, fourth, fifth, it gets easier. Now that I know what x equals, how do I find y? We plug it in. Now there's two choices that we could plug it into. The easier of the two would be the which one? The bottom one. So let's take that 4 back up here. Y equals negative 3 times 4 is a negative 12, plus 12 is 0. So my final answer would be what? Say it again. The works on the graph? Okay, let's try again, part B. Actually, I want you to know how to do these by hand. So the first step is to do what? The first step is to solve for y. They are. Let's make the substitution. Take one and substitute it up into the other. Go for it. Instead of saying y, we are going to say x minus 1. Then we have to take everything from the left and move it over to the right. So let's subtract x here, you would get a 12x. Add 1, you would get a 16. Now, one thing we did not discuss when we were on the blackboard and just practicing was anytime you're factoring, the first thing you want to look for is a GCF, which is the greatest common factor. Does this trinomial have a greatest common factor? A 2. Now, if I'm just factoring, you pull the 2 out front and then you've got all the garbage in the middle. If I'm solving, each one of these 4 terms, the 0, the 2, the 12, the 16, they are all divisible by 2, right? So can I divide the 2 away? Stay with me, Natalie. Can I divide the 2 away and make this problem easier? Yeah, let's do that. So 0 divided by 2 is still 0. 2 over 2 is 1. 12, 2 will be a 6. And then 8. This is a much easier problem to solve than that one. Not that that was terrible, but if we can get rid of it, we want to. All right, now play the game. What two numbers multiply to 8 and add to 6? 2 and 4? Multiply to 8, add to 6, 2, 4, yeah. So, x plus 2, x plus 4. We're almost done solving for x. Set each of those equal to 0. This was equal to 0, then x would be what? Negative 2. If this were equal to 0, then negative 4. So now, on this particular problem, I'm going to have 2 solutions. This is one of those cases where you would have a graph that looks like this, and a parabola that looks like this, and it would cross twice. We saw that last time, right? Okay. So, how do I find my 2 different solutions? Let's start with this one. If I plug in the negative 2 minus 1 would be negative 3. Is that okay? Stay with me. which means your first ordered pair is -2, -3. If you plug in the -4, -4 minus 1, you get the -5, which means my next ordered pair would be lots of algebra, right? Over and over again. Okay, questions. We've done 2 now. I need like 2 or 3 questions before we can move on. What do you not understand? How did you get this? What did you do here? Why are you doing this? Why do we have to? Friday. I know, we're not there yet. Okay. And tomorrow's your birthday. Okay, so questions. How do you feel about it? Yes, Harrison.
Can we do one where we have to get a quadratic formula?
I'm sure we will. I just don't know where it is. I'm sure we will. Okay, let's, oh, that is not very much practice. Jump over to your homework really quick. I'm going to pause this for a second. So try number 1. Number 1, are you going to have to do the quadratic anything? No. In fact, let me look at my answer key really quick to see if we need the quadratic formula anywhere. Yep, we do. Finish up the problem you're on, and then will you jump to problem 4 and try that one? Everybody should be doing either problem number 1 or problem number 4. If they're on 4, that's because I just finished. On this homework assignment, you will need to write small. This is mine. Okay, some of this writing's on there. It's a lot of stuff. Okay, number 4. When you make the substitution, everywhere there's a y, you're going to replace it with what? -5. So, -5 equals -2x squared minus 5. This looks like a slightly easier example, I hope. Next step is to do what? Let's add that 5 over. And when we do plus 5, what happens right here? It completely goes away, right? So you've got a 0 equals a -2x squared. Do you remember how to solve something that looks like this? I would start by getting rid of the -2. How do you do that? Let's divide by a -2. Good. Divide by a -2. So you have x squared equals what? Still 0. Good. And then square root it. Now normally when I square root, if that was a 9, I would say x equals plus or minus 3, right? It could be a positive 3 or it could be a negative 3. Do you remember doing that, the plus or minus? Okay. However, it's not 9, it's 0, which means what does x equal? 0. Technically plus or minus 0, we don't need a plus or minus, so just 0. Now if I plug that back, is it even necessary to plug it back in? Or do we already know what y equals? It tells us y equals -5. You can confirm if you plug this in right here and get a 0, is y equal -5? Yeah. So how do I write my final answer? 0, -5. Why don't you try now maybe number 6? Let's do 6 and then let's do 8 and then let's go back to the notes. Eight's harder. Eight's one that you have to use the quadratic formula. So that's why I would like to do it together. For your information, I used the quadratic formula 2 times on this assignment. Okay, so let's start by making that substitution. When you bring that negative x plus 5 up, you've got negative x plus 5 equals x squared minus 6x plus 9. In order to solve the quadratic, what do you have to do? Magic, and then, no, move, yep, add the x. So when this comes over here, it becomes a negative 5x, it's one higher. Subtract the 5, when this comes over, it's a plus 4. Is that okay? Now we try playing the game. Are there two numbers that will multiply to 4 and add to negative 5? Yes. They're both negative. What are they? 4 and 1. So if this is equal to 0, then either, I'm going to start writing it in the ordered pairs, either x equals what? 4, or x equals, how do you feel about that so far? So those are the x parts. If if I wanted to find the y part, I would take the 4 and do what with it? Plug it back in. So y equals negative x plus 5. So negative 4 plus 5 would be 1. If I'm plugging in a 1, y equals negative x plus 5. So negative 1 plus 5, which is 4. Now these numbers won't always be flip-flop of each other. That's just by chance. Okay, we've done several now. Do you feel better about it? Is it coming? Questions? Like problem number 2? Yeah, I would just negative 2x plus 14 equals 6x plus 18. Take 1, substitute. Okay, number 8. Let's try this one. Take 1y, substitute it into the other. So what do we have? X squared plus 3x minus 9 equals what? 5x minus 8, good. Still a quadratic equation. So how do I solve the quadratic equation? Everything on one side has to be 0. So let's subtract the 5x, and this becomes a what? Negative 2x. Let's add the 8. This becomes questions so far? Because if you have them, you should ask. Yes. Number 1 of the second equation doesn't equal y. It's okay, you can still take this right here and substitute it in right here. So it would be negative 4x plus 6 times all of that garbage. And then just solve that. Okay, going back to number 8 though, are there any questions on 8? Okay, let's keep going then. Now I'm going to try to play the game. Are there two numbers that will multiply to a negative 1 and add to a negative 2? If those two are reversed, then it would work. Can you find two numbers that multiply to 2 and add to 1? That would work if they were reversed. However, I can't find two that multiply to a negative 1 and add to a negative 2. So this is not factorable, which means what do you have to do? Quadratic formula. Now I'm going to forget the all over 2a temporarily. So let's just look at the negative b. Remember you've got your a, b, c, right? So negative, writing small, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared. So rather than writing negative 2 squared, because I don't want you to get it wrong on your calculator, what's negative 2 squared? 4 squared, and you're upstairs, but we're having to do it so you know. Okay, so negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c so this is the same thing as 2 plus or minus the square root of, or again, 8, because these negatives cancel, it would be 8. I don't want my answers to be in square roots, I want them to be in decimals. So let's take this, whatever this means, and break it apart. That means either 2 plus the square root of 8. On your calculator, plug that in best. Do you have it? What is it? 4.8? Or it means 2 minus the square root of 8, which is negative 0.8. Somebody confirm both of those really quick. They're both good? Okay. We're almost done. We've almost found the x values. We're not even done finding x yet. We have to go back and find y's after. But we forgot something. We have the negative b plus or minus square root of yeah. We forgot b all over. We didn't forget. We just left it to this point. So we have to divide each of these by what? A is 1. So 2a would be 2 So my x values are, the first one, 2.4-ish. The second one, negative 0.4-ish. Aren't you glad we're doing this on your homework and not in the note? It's one less that you have to do. So if I'm writing my final answer, I'm just going to put it like this. That's one of them, 2.4. We've got to figure out the y. The other one is negative 0.4. We've got to figure out the y. Luckily, this is the easy part, easy-ish part. What do we do next? Let's take them and plug them back into which one? Definitely the top one. Come back up here. 5 times 2.4 minus 8 is what? 4. Is 4? 3. They're both 4? No. Okay, let's do the other one. 5 times a negative 0.4 minus 8 is negative 10. That is a lot of work. So, for number 10, we've kind of taken over its space. You may find that taking out a separate sheet of paper and writing your work on a separate sheet of paper will make it easier for you. If you write small, like, Jamie, that's really neat. Then go for it. Mine is looking like back at it, that is a bunch of cluttery mess, but you may want to get a separate sheet of paper. So, okay, cool. Let's go back to the notes really quick. Class today gets over at, oh, that's right, 11:09. It's my birthday.
I usually like write hand to it, but then every time I'm doing math, I like
As you should.
it's like
As you should. Okay, looking at part C, how is C and D different? They're circles. They're circles. They're a bigger baby and you're behind. All right, so you start by saying there is a substitution that I need to make. Where is it? Everywhere there's a y, what do you plug in? So this guy right here needs to be 2x minus 10. So let's substitute that. X squared plus 2x minus 10 squared equals 25. Everybody's taking a deep breath. Very cute. Not doing it. I'm holding my breath until this is over. Don't do that. It could be why. Great. How do you square that?
Magic. Just square.
Can you square this and be good? No, you may not. You may want to get out a separate sheet of paper. You may want to just put it off to the side. Or have a really small handwriting. We have to rewrite it and FOIL it, because if I just square the first term and I just square that last term, we forget about the outside and the inside term. So, rewrite them. 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 2x times a negative 10 would be negative 20x. And then go down to the next number, the negative 10, and distribute that. Negative 10 times 2x would be negative 20x. And then negative 10 times a negative 10 would be positive 100. So it's really just kind of requiring that, especially in math, it's not like school war and then like the golf war, like they're just completely different. In math, once we teach you something, you gotta keep it. At least like recognize it so it can come back quickly. I need you to remember that if it looks like this, you have to spread it apart and FOIL it. Like that's a critical skill in my subject. So let's rewrite this. Instead of saying 2x minus 10 squared, what do we do? X squared, now write this, plus 4x squared, combine those two, minus 40x plus 100 equals 25. Now we're going to combine like terms and move our 100 over to get. This will be what? 5x squared minus 40x, and then subtract the 25. Subtract the 25. So plus 75, because our whole goal is to get equal to 0, right? And if I get it equal to 0, I can either factor it or use the quadratic formula. So, what next? Still holding your breath. Minutes. Yeah, GCF. Each term is divisible by 5. So let's do that because that will make the problem more simple. X squared minus 8x, and we're going to take any shortcut we can get, plus 15. Now what? Play the game. Let two numbers multiply to 15 and add to a negative 8. Down here, everyone's answers. Good. I know they're both negative. Why? Because the 8's negative. And I know that, and then multiplying, I need to make a positive, right? So 15 is 8 and 3. So if I start writing out my answers, either x equals, from here, 8, or what's 8? I don't know, 5 and 3. Point. It's 5. I was really excited. Yeah.
Okay, I was like, whoa.
You're right, 5. I don't, 8 is there. It's really hard to remember. What just happened? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Okay, so backtrack. Either x equals not 8. So here, x equals what? 5. Don't know the y yet. Or x equals 3. Almost there.
Oh my god.
Now what? Plug it in. Plug it in. Going to the easier of the two. Plugging in a 5. 2 times 5 is 10. Minus 10 is 0. That's nice. Go back here. Plug in a 3. 2 times 3 is 6. Minus 10 is... No.
Just have to.
Yeah, because there's a part D. So we're going to be doing it at least one more time, and it depends on how many there are in your homework. It could be more than...
There's 3 of them.
Okay, one more time. At least one more time. Part D. Where do you start? Now, notice, this one's a monomial instead of a binomial. Do you expect the problem to be easier? Yes. It should be easier because you don't have to do the whole FOIL thing, right? So, when we substitute this to here, you rewrite x squared plus negative 4x squared equals 68. What is a negative 4x squared? 16x squared. Very good. You got x squared plus, there is no add in between here. So you do need to square the negative 4 and the x squared. You don't have to write it out. 16x squared equals 68. Combine like terms. 17x squared equals 68. And I'm really hoping that 68 is divisible by 17. 4 times. That's convenient. So x squared equals 4. Woohoo! Then we take the square root. But when you take the square root, how many answers do you have? 2. A positive and a negative. Take the square root. X either equals 2 or what? Negative 2. So if I'm starting to write my answers, 2 would be the first one. Negative 2 would be the next one. How do you find what goes here? Plug it in. So if we plug in the 2, negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. If I plug in the negative 2, negative 4 times the negative 2 is a positive 8. Are we done? I'm never doing that again.
And there are 3 more on your homework. Let's do one of those 3 together. Let me choose. How about okay, do you want to go the easy one or do you want to go the hard one? I love that you guys want to do hard problems. Okay. I know. My B2 class is my favorite because they always choose to do the hard problems. Number 10, try it. Get as far as you possibly can. Even if it's
Just making a substitution. Number 10.
I will write one paper.
And you may want to do it on a separate sheet of paper.
I'm doing it on this paper.
write very small.
I'm going to do it on this paper.
I'm just gonna go like this. I have plenty of room.
Tutor, when I woke up this morning, I did not do it.
Yes, however, I need to make my work legible. Are y'all trying or are you complaining? Keep going. You're welcome. Yes. Start by solving for white. I'm having a great time. So if you're miserable, just know that I'm enjoying it.
I enjoy it.
You're enjoying my misery?
So the stereotypical math teacher enjoys your misery is actually true.
That's why I got into education. It certainly wasn't the paycheck.
I get paid to make kids miserable.
You also get paid to stay up.
Like the subscript of my title. Yeah. So we are starting by solving for y down here. What does y equal? 1 minus 2x. And again, remember we're writing small. In fact, I might even enlarge it so that I can write small and you can still see it. Okay? After you have that, what do? You get food up here, you're going to have to boil it. So go off to the side somewhere, boil it so that you know how to make that replacement. It is kind of cool though that your brain is capable of doing this right now because guaranteed in September, there's no way, right?
How much you have come in the last 8 months this school year?
We're not going to remember any
I'm not going to remember any of this concept in every three.
Yes, you will. If not, it will come back very. That's kind of like the moment that I expected Bryce to say, "Yeah, this is fun," and he's like, "Yeah, no, it's not," and it crushed my soul. Leslie, you're killing.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. All right, boil it. Have we done that yet? Yeah. So 1 minus 2x times 1 minus 2x. So 1 times 1, 1 times a negative 2x. Negative 2x. Is that okay? Yeah. And then negative 2x times 1. And then plus 4x squared. So what do I do with this garbage? You throw away the garbage. So let's take this and put it up here and then we'll combine like terms at the same time. Is that okay? Yeah. So you still have an x squared because that's part of the problem. Plus you have all of this. I'm going to write it in standard form, so I'm going to go backwards. So plus 4x squared minus 4x plus 1 equals 10. Combine like terms again. You've got 1x plus 4x equals 5x squared minus 4x. Subtract the 10 over, minus 9. Now, we've got two choices. You can either factor
Or you can do the quadratic formula. You know the quadratic formula works. Factoring, if we choose to factor, are we going to be able to take the shortcut? No, because of the 5. So either way,
the problem's going to take, I still think factoring's easier than the quadratic formula though. So let's see if it will factor. Let's cross our fingers. In this case, I am looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 45 and add to a negative 4. Are there two numbers, raise your hand if you know what they are, that multiply to a negative 45, add to a negative 4? Go ahead, Erin. 5 and 9, so then the 9 is negative. Now I can't just say 5 and 9, right? What do I do next? I have to take that middle term, do you remember? And split it up. Very good. So 5x squared minus, you said 9x plus 5x. Now look at those two. That replaced the -4, but really is it equal to the -4? I haven't changed the problem. I've just made it look different. Because at this point, what do? There's 4 terms. Anytime you see 4 terms, you group them. Looking at the first group, is there a GCF? No? Let me come up here. There's no well, yeah, there is. There's one. What is it? Just x. And what are we left with? 5x minus 9. And then looking at this one, is there a GCF? No, so I don't just leave nothing. What do I put? I do the plus 1, so I don't forget about it. You have 5x minus 9. These should both be the same, right? If they are, what do? Share and keep going. The greatest common factor between these two terms is the 5x minus 9. My leftovers are x plus 1. We now have it factored. What? We now have it factored, so now we can set it to equal to 0 and solve. So this one's not bad. X equals what? From here, if I set this equal to 0, how would you solve it? What's the first step? Add the 9 over, so 5x would equal 9. And then divide by 5. So x equals 1.8 or -1. Now we have the first part. The second part is not actually happening, the process. So we have the first half of our answer. Now we need to find the second half of our answer. Where in all of this mess should you plug the -1 in? The one that I've highlighted, right? Because this is, out of the 3, 1, 2, 3, this is the easiest. To find why. Let's take the -1, plug it back in. So 1 minus 2 times -1 would be what? 3? Okay. Now let's plug in 1.8. I believe on my answer key I left them in fractions because I'm good at fractions. So when you grade them, well, you'll know you got it right because we did it together. Doesn't really matter. Okay, plug in a 1.8 here. You said -2.6. That's what I got as well. Throw your hats in the air. We're good with that.
Yes.
I have so much room. And I feel a mess.
Okay. You're right, small too. All right, so that, I believe, is all that we can handle today. That doesn't mean I'm going to stop the recording. I might do one more problem together with you, though. Do you feel good about that? We've done all of the evens, haven't we? Yeah. I lied. I don't want to do any more together with you. Just because if I do more with you, then do you get the practice by yourself that you need? Because I can't do the test with you. So here is your homework assignment for tonight while I'm still recording. You need to do problems 1 through 10. And 13 through 18. So we skip the story problems. Okay, we will go back to those story problems. Have a good day.